One generic board is called an 8-in-4 outboard. So again, let me tell you that it's called an 8-in-4 outboard. It has the capacity to manipulate different sounds at the same time. You can actually wire in 16 sounds, as we will see in a little while, but you know, you can't play them all at the same time. Whatever you bring into the board can be sent to only four places as it leaves the board. Here we will show you an example of a generic audio board. All right, even this basic board may look a bit intimidating to you because it has all these knobs and buttons, but actually it's really simple to understand. But if you look at it very carefully, you will see a great deal of duplication. Each channel has the same controls as as we discussed earlier, and you have to keep in mind that they are working in the same way as the others. So you will know that all inputs can be used for microphones or for some other piece of equipment. Now, it is a very good idea to label the board to whatever extent possible, indicating the use of each and every one of the knobs or the input and so on. So we have arranged our board with the idea that we will generally use the first 2 or 3 positions of the microphones and the rest of the equipment that we use frequently. So we have 2 CD players, and we can go from music one to music on the other, and we have a digital audio tape, and it is a player and a mini disc player that we will also use often. So that is our setup. So we should frequently bring in sound from a cassette recorder. We are rolling a tape like that of a man on the street interview, for example, and we will have to roll that when we are going to use it when we're doing the program. Okay, now let's talk about the on and off switch. At the very basic level, you need to be able to turn this input channel on and off if you are not using it. You do not want to have it on because some sound may accidentally come in and go through this. Some boards have large buttons, one for on and one for off. Faders control the volume of the sound for each particular channel, and the 0 position is usually the optimum area for sound. Of course, the reason you have a fader is so you can vary the volume. If someone with a loud voice is speaking into the microphone, and you would want to set the volume lower, then you will have to have this device to make sure that you can turn the sound a little lower, and to have, because if your talent would have a soft voice, then you want to put up the volume. You may wonder about the numbers beside the fader. Okay, sound has traditionally been measured in decibels, and 0 decibels, as you can see in this audio console that you are seeing now, has been calibrated to be a comfortable level to hear, and a comfortable level for an equipment to handle without distortion. Sound down up to 0 has been marked with minuses, while sound above 0 is indicated with pluses. So soundboards use percentages, and rather than decibels, with 100% being equal to 0 decibels. And soundboards do not have faders that move up and down. Rather, they have knobs. You can turn it to the right to increase the volume. These knobs are referred to as pots, short for potentiometers. When you are operating the board during a production, you often need to bring a particular fader up and to fade in a sound, and to take it down to fade out and down. So faders are also used to mix sounds together for a what we call as a crossfade. You bring one sound in slowly, okay, while you have another go out slowly. If you are doing a crossfade from the music onto the CD player, one to music to a CD player too, and so you would gradually bring channel 4's fading out while raising channel 5's fader. And the other type of audio transition is called segue. All right, so the other one is crossfade and the other one is segue. This means that there is an abrupt change from one sound to another. For effect's sake, you might want to move abruptly from the middle of a piece of music to a voice statement coming from the announcer, or maybe from a mini disc, and you would lower channel 4's fader quickly while at the same time raise channel 7's fader, or you can hit the respective on and off buttons. So you can have effects like this. The cue buttons are sometimes called as Audition, the Audition button. It is used when you want to get something ready, but you don't want it recorded. For example, if you push the cue button for channel 6, you can play the digital audio, the audio tape, and to the point, to the point wherein you want to start and then bring it in at a point later at the program. So this is what you use, what we call as the cue button.
The worst thing that can happen when you are just listening to the radio is when you have dead air. You have a dead air when there is no sound coming from your receiver. And that is because perhaps for one reason or another, this jockey fails to cue the record properly. How do you cue a record? If it is a player, the ordinary RPM, recorded material, the way to do it is to listen to for the first sound that comes from the turntable. But with the current improvement in technology, all you have to do is identify where the sound, where the first recording of the sound comes from. And sometimes it can be traced through the counter when it is at 000, or if there is a visual recording of the sound, then where the sound starts, at exactly where it starts.
And now let's talk about equalizers. We have included a bit of equalization in our board so that we can at least alter sounds to some degree. The equalizer in this board handles high, middle level, and low frequency separately so that we can emphasize on the emphasized ranges. For example, if you want to give someone's voice a deeper sound, we might turn the knob from low frequencies to so that they are maximized. Now leave the knob for mid frequencies in the center position and adjust the high frequency knobs slightly to lessen these frequencies. Trim, often called as gain, is a volume control that can be used to supplement the amplification of the general fader. It increases the volume without causing distortion of the analog and the clipping of the digital sound. It is particularly good to use for people who have very soft voices. Now let's talk about input. This is a control that determines what is fed through the channel. It can be a microphone or some other pieces of equipment that enables the 8-channel board to actually accept 16 inputs, but because the switch must be in either the mic feed position or the line feed position, both cannot operate at the same time. In the mic feed position, the sound is routed through a preamplifier to take into account the fact that the mics are really low. The line equipment does not go through the preamplifier. If a lot of equipment would be used during a production, the audio operator must think carefully about what is used and also when it is used. Now let's talk about outputs. These 4 buttons determines where the sound goes once it leaves the board. This is actually really a functional thing, and how to engineer this, wires to the board. In a studio, you want one of the outputs to go to the recorder so that the sound can be recorded. You might want to put another output to go into the studio for when the talents would need to hear the program, to hear the audio while they are in the studio. Perhaps you want to also send one output to DAT so that you can have an audio only recording for the program. Or you might want the sound to go to the patch bay so that it can be sent to other places you desire. And the signal can go to all 4 places at the same time. You simply push the button for the designation you want. Each channel has its own selection of outputs because you might want to send only part of the sound to a particular place. Okay, now let us talk about other controls. We have now finished discussing all the controls on our generic console and how they are related to channel 1 through channel 8. However, you also need to understand the number of other controls on the far right of the board. Quite a few of them are volume levels, and the knobs 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are the volume controls for the 4 outputs. It is conceivable, for example, that you want to send a sound to the DAT at a lower volume level that you send to the recorder. There are also volume controls for the speaker and the control room speaker in the studio. The Q speaker and the high phones, here is also a place, now you have a place to plug the headphones so that you can work on the setting up to the board without disturbing anyone or everyone else. This is often very helpful before the production begins, when people in the control room want to be able to communicate with each other and concentrate on their jobs without annoying noises of tape rewinding or even the same part of the same CD being played over and over. So this is the way it works. Now, let's talk about the outboard equipment. The outboard equipment used in conjunction with the audio console is often referred to as our board equipment because it is outside the board. Most of it is used to record and to play back. The choices in this equipment have expanded, in recent years as digital has taken over, and you will no doubt be familiar with at least some of this equipment, having used it in your home. Professional equipment operates much like consumer equipment, but the professional equipment, of course, is sturdier because it is used in an active way for many hours, and we keep using it. Okay, so let's now enumerate the outboard equipment. You have the CD player. That's the first. No doubt it's the most ubiquitous, or what we call as universal, of outboard equipment. And it is the CD compact disc player. So in fact, audio setups often have two CD players nowadays, so that the audio operator can undertake quick transitions from sound on one to the sound on the other. And CDs usually, for professional production, queue up quickly so that there is no dead air when going from one to the other. The quality of digital sound and the small size readiness of CDs make this an excellent technology for production. And we know that there is so much music, really, that is pre-recorded on CDs, and there are also a great amount of sound effects that we have in CD format. CDs that can be used effectively with programs. Some CD equipment records, but it is more likely to be used for post-production. And now let's talk about the turntables. The CD player is said to have replaced the old analog turntable, but many people still like to make use of the turntables. So turntables have not disappeared, actually. In queuing a record, you must find the spot you want and back up half a turn so that the turntable has time to get up to the speed when you actually want to use the sound. And we say that if there is a delay and you sort of capture that in the program, then there will be a wow. We call it the record goes wow. And then so we must make sure that the vinyl record stays in the position, either by holding it or by turning it off. In other words, the motor, when it is time to play, that's the only time that you sort of quickly take away your hand. And to play the selection, you must act quickly, and to avoid dead air. And the coming out of distortion sound, of course, as I said earlier, is what we call as wow. So put up the volume right away, just at the right time when the turntable has attained its ideal speed. So now let's talk about the DAT recorders, or what we call the digital audio tape recorders. It is taking on an increasing role in our radio studios, our studio productions, or sound production studios. So information in binary form and zeros and ones would be recorded on the tape in a diagonal fashion when we're talking about DAT, allowing a small 1/8 inch cassette tape to hold several hours of material. So portable units can record in field, and larger console units then can play back the material for studio. Generally, DAT is used for material specially recorded for a particular program as opposed to pre-produced materials. So this means that such as music and what we call as sound effects. So let's talk about cassette recorders this time. Although DATs increasingly replaced the analog cassette recorder, many are still in use. They're very inexpensive, and many people, including students, personally own them and use them to acquire material to include within the program. So at present, they are more durable than DAT recorders, but DAT technology is improving in that regard. So let's talk about mini discs, mini disc recorders. And the mini disc is a digital-based recorder player that records material in special discs, and also it is similar to computer floppy disks. Again, they are very portable, and there are tabletop models. And one of the big advantages of the mini disc is its editing capabilities. It is possible to edit within the recorder itself. So a reporter can report a story in the field and edit it on the way back to the studio. For television, the story would need to be accompanied by visuals. But the mini disc works well for an audio-based story with graphics. So that's the best way to use it. So now let's talk about cartridge recorders. For many years, the analog cartridge recorder, often called as the cart machine, was the workhorse of the production centers, and it is still in use. And the cartridge carts, we call it, would fit into the player and contain a continuous long loop of tape that can be short or long duration. When something is recorded on a cart, the machine places the inaudible cue tone on the tablet, and it enables the tablet to cue itself very accurately to the beginning or the recorded segment. Many studios keep a rack of carts for material they play often. So station IDs, program theme music, and these types of materials, from material of short duration that must be queued up quickly. So your we call it your cart machine is very much used, especially for commercials, and also even public service announcements, they use that too. So now let's go to the what we call as the digital carts. The digital cart is not really a cartridge, okay, in the sense as a cart in an analog type of equipment, but it is designed to replace the analog cart, and it seems to be doing well, because what it really amounts to is a computer with a great deal of storage that can hold a large number of digital audio files. Now the commercials, the jingles, and the like can be produced in digital editing system and outputted to a zip drive. The disk from the zip can be replaced in a digital cart in order to transfer the audio file to the cart. Then the audio operator simply brings up and activates it when it needs to air the materials. Or an operator also can program a number of files to play one after the other. So it can be programmed, and in that way handle a full commercial break. All of this equipment must be handled carefully because it can be easily damaged. Cables consist of, you know, these tiny wires that can be easily broken. Broken wires are particularly difficult to find because they are usually, you know, inside the casing. To prevent this breakage, we make sure that cables should be neatly coiled after it is used. And then so you have to put them back carefully where you got them from. And the one affected coiling is the string. The cable on the floor with the, you know, you have to coil it with figure 8, yes, figure 8 pattern, and then fold it in halves together, and then hang the cable on a peg. So you should never pull on a cable when you're disconnecting it. Use a connector instead, and but treat the connectors gently. Don't force it because the tongs can bend or it can even break. So when ringing it, ineffective, or of course worse, you know, intermittently, that should be done too. So that's the same for the rest of the equipment, even cables. Now let's talk about cables. Cables consists of wires and cords that signals are sent. These cables can be either balanced or unbalanced. And so balanced cables have 3 wires, all right? Two would be used to carry the signal, and 1 to act as what we call as a ground. So unbalanced cables have just 2 wires. One carry the signal, and the other carry the other part of the signal and also act as a ground at the same time. In both cases, the wires are sheathed in an outer cover of plastic. And balanced cables are higher in quality and more expensive than unbalanced cables because they are less susceptible to the electronic interference, and also this interference can be caused by, for example, you know, somebody's using a vacuum cleaner or maybe a what's that? A hand blown hand dryer for blow drying your hair, and so and also any type of power tools. So generally, professional studios really make use of balanced cables and are found even in consumer gear. So cable set connectors are on each end so that they can transport sound from one place to another. So one type of connector is what we call as the XLR connector. It is used to a balanced system because it has 3 conductors, 1 for each wire. with the aid of a guide pin, the prongs of the male plug fit exactly into the female plug so that they are tightly connected. So the connection is very secure. The only way to unlock them is to press on the connector lock. So another type of connector is what we call as the phone connector. The sleeve and the tip of the male plug fit into the female jack. So the mini phone connector is similar to the phone connector except that it is smaller. And the RCA connector has a prong surrounded by an outer sleeve that fits into the female jack, and sometimes two pieces of equipment that need to be netted and may have different connectors. You know, sometimes there will be problems, and other types of equipment may have a male plug, but at the end of the cable also it has a male plug, and the two cannot then really connect to each other. So these types of problems, there are what we call as adapters. So for example, the female end is a mini phone and the male end is an RCA, but both ends will then have to have an adapter to be able to connect the two. So now let's go to what we call patch base, and as we previously mentioned, the patch bay is really a system that enables signals to be connected to various pieces of equipment without restringing cables all over the facility. So patch bays are boxes that usually consist of a large number of phone jacks. One row of jacks would be for sound coming from the equipment, and another row would be sounds coming from another set of equipment, or maybe the microphones. And each piece of equipment is wired to the back of a particular jack. Some pieces are wired for both signal to come in and a signal to go out in order to allow for flexibility.
Now I'm here to talk about digital sound. So with the name, it's inherent na digital, anything that can be broken down into ones and zeros. So that's digital content. So that's a machine language that the computer can understand. So how do you convert sound into digital sound, or how do you make it digital, or how do you convert it into something that the computer can understand so you can manipulate it with your personal computer and with a corresponding software? So there are many ways to convert analog into digital. First of all, in a computer there's a sound card. Then it has an RCA connection at the back. Most sound cards have that. Then you can connect your analog device like your tape recorder, your cassette, or even some turntables. You can hook it up into your computer and it will capture or digitize the analog content, then convert it into something that the computer can understand. Now, what are other ways that you can convert music into, or to manipulate music in a computer? You can download music right away or sounds from various sites in the internet. So from there you can transfer it into your own hard drive, so you can manipulate it now as you please. So there are various software applications available that you can use to edit or tweak your sound or your music. So Adobe Premiere is primarily a video editing software application, but it has some features where you can edit or enhance or manipulate sound also. So I'll show you an example. So this is a music clip. So this is the representation of a music clip in Premiere. So it's a strip of film pero audio. So as you can see, so these are the waves of the music. So I'll play it back first. So there. So this is like a visual representation lang of the music. So this is what it looks like. So there. So in Premiere, if you notice, there's a video track. So this is where all your video files go. Then this is the audio track. So in Premiere, you can have as many as 99 layers in your project. So you have audio 1, audio 2, audio 3, audio 4, all the way to 99. So you can have as many 99 layers. You can have as many as 99 layers. Then at the same time, you can rename your layers. So for example, you have one layer that's, you can name it voiceover, for example. So automatically this will change into voiceover. Then the other track would be your sound effects, so SFX. So, or another one could be dialogue. Okay, so this is mainly to organize your files, so as the editor doesn't get confused as to what layer the audio file will go to. So it's really more organizational consideration. So there. So if you notice with the audio layer or the audio track, there is a red or a pink line in between, in the center of it. This is what we call the rubber band. So with that, and with this icon, with this tool, I mean, you can increase the volume. So for example, yung na-record nyo from the mic is too soft. So you can make it louder here. So, or you can soften it. So if you see the percentage, it's going down. So there. So the importance of that is when your client, or when you're required to decrease or increase it by 25% or by 50%. So it's precise, it's exact. So there is a way of controlling it with precision. Okay, so that's the rubber band, and that's the gain and the increase and the decrease of the volume. Okay, so that's one thing you can do with Premiere. Another thing you can do is crossfading. So you can just copy this and paste another file there. So you just overlap the two files or the two tracks like that. So they're overlapping by 1 second. Then with this tool, the same icon, click the first one. Then if you go to the second one, it becomes this crossfading icon. Then just click it. Automatically, this will fade out as this fades in. So you have a seamless transition from one type of music to another. What this does is it mixes different types of music. So if you want a shape sound, there's a different that's a different process. So we've gone through gaining and increasing and decreasing the volume, crossfading different types of music. You can also shape it. So you just right click the audio track, go to audio, filters. So a list will come out of all the filters available in Premiere. So for example, the echo. So it's as simple as choosing an effect, then adding it into your your clip. So as soon as you see a green line on top of your file, you know that there's a filter on it. Okay, so to check the filter, just right click again, so you have echo. Okay, so when you add a filter, you can also calibrate how much you want the filter to take effect. So it's not automatic and it's not fixed. So the editor can still customize it a bit according to the needs. So for example, here you have short and long. So if you want a longer echo, so you just calibrate it here, or a louder echo. Preview. So there you can preview it also here. Then you can fix it as you go along. There. Then you also have bass and treble. So you can just calibrate it as for your depends on your requirements. So there. So you have a number of filters here na, so it depends on what you need. So it's as simple as dropping it or dragging it into your audio file. Then just calibrate it to customize it a bit.
So every time you do it, you can play it back.
Yeah, so you can preview it. Okay. Yeah, so you can fine tune it. So there, it's as simple as that. So audio formats that the computer can recognize are WAV files. There's AIF, there's MPEG, MP3, MPG files. There's MIDI. So those are some audio files that the computer can read. Now there are other software applications that are mainly for audios. You have SoundForge and Vegas. So Adobe Premiere is basically for video editing, but it has certain audio editing functions also for the normal user, for the prosumer market. So there. What else?
What are the advantages and disadvantages that you have come across working with sound in analog and in digital?
Well, with digital, you can edit it non-linearly. There is such a word. Unlike with tape or with analog, you have to rewind to the beginning. If you make a mistake, you'll have to do it all over again. Unlike since it's a digital file, you can manipulate it as easy as word processing. So you just cut and paste. So for example, like this one, I can just make multiple copies of it right away. So you can see the representation there. Unlike with analog, because of its physical, what's this? With the limits of its physicality, you have to go back to the beginning and all these things. So with the computer, since it's just a digital file, you can treat it non-linearly. So you're not limited by that.
Oh, so now that you're acquainted with all the equipment and the tools to put together an audio production or use audio to complete your video production or even your entire multimedia presentation, so what are you waiting for? So the learning is really in the doing. So let's do it.